What if Ilya and Shane were my clients? I'm going to be walking you through that process over the next several weeks. I'm also going to be sharing conversations that I've recorded with real men, friends and colleagues that I've asked to go through this process with me.
The old storyline I gave myself was I lacked the courage to be honest with myself and therefore others. And I guess that strategy that I've developed was really rooted in a fear that I harbored as a child of something bad happening.
Being in an environment with my friends and being around gay people as back in Cincinnati has allowed me to be more myself.
I don't know. I think I have at least a vague sense that there will be some kind of falling in love moment. I feel like that there would be a moment like that where I'm like, I can't really tell you what I'm looking for exactly, but I have a feeling that when it hits, it's just going to be like a tuning fork goes off in my heart. It's like, that's it.
Hello, welcome back to the Good Life Lab with Dr. Dave. I'm Dr. Dave. I'm a therapist, credentialed coach, and former college professor turned YouTuber and content creator. And I'm in this series that I'm excited about as a therapist and coach, a framework that I developed over the years to help me navigate some of life's challenges and difficulties. And so I'm going to be sharing that with you. But I'm going to be doing that through the fictional characters of Ilya and Shane from Heated Rivalry. What if Ilya and Shane were my clients? And I was walking them through these conversations that I often have with men as a therapist and coach, and that I've had with myself over the years. And so all that research that I've done, I've put into this framework called Compass. And so I'm going to be walking you through that process over the next several weeks. So I hope you can join in and do this for yourself as I kind of share an example of what it's like to do that with Ilya and Shane. I'm also going to be sharing conversations that I've recorded with real men, friends and colleagues that I've asked to go through this process with me. And they developed kind of a real project for themselves related to health and wellness and well-being with this Compass framework in mind. So please join me for the series. This is where I'm going to get into some of the details around each of the Compass points. So each letter in the Compass framework stands for what I call coordinating points. I'll go into detail about each of those and how they relate to kind of what Ilya and Shane are going through. So initially, if Shane and Ilya, if you've been in therapy, you kind of know what to expect. But for those who haven't been in therapy or with a coach, there are many different ways of approaching that. And so when somebody comes to me, I don't get into what they should be doing. I don't think many therapists would do that right away. I want to know more about them. What's their origin story? Who are they? Where do they come from? That's kind of my first starting point. So we're really trying to understand where they are in their lives, and then eventually getting to where do they want to go? What are their ideas, their visions, their dreams for where they want to go? And then walking through a plan, a process for how to get from where they are to where they want to go. And so that's where the Compass framework comes in. It's first understanding kind of the terrain they're dealing with, where they are in their lives, and then beginning to map out a way to get to where they want to go. That's simply put, that's what it's about. And like I said in the last video, this framework is based on science. So what's worked in primarily the positive psychology field that I'm a part of, that I do my research in, that's where I kind of draw a lot of my evidence for some of these practices, as well as my own experience, like what's worked for me. That's what I try to bring into this Compass framework. So let me walk you through each of the Compass points and then get into a little bit of detail about each one. The next several weeks is going to be each week I'm going to take one letter at a time and get into even greater detail and bring in Ilya and Shane and my other colleagues who have gone through this process, kind of share their stories as part of this framework to help you do this for yourself. That's the end goal, is to help you walk through this for yourself as well. So let me just start with this Compass framework. The C stands for clues and coordinating points. The O stands for origin story and heroic journey. The M stands for what makes you come alive. The P is powers and personal strengths. The A stands for allies, tribe, and accountability. The first S stands for sacred anchors and core values. And the last S is symphony of self-care and service. And really each coordinating point represents a different kind of conversation. So let me get into a little bit more detail of each one. So C, the clues and coordinating points. This is where I begin often, and it's really foundational for setting up the whole framework. Clues for me is really, what is life trying to tell you? And it's this mindset shift of not just going about your life and trying to fill it up with things, but taking time to listen to your life. Clues are the signals, the longings, tensions, patterns, the moments of aliveness that you feel, things that keep showing up and patterns and themes in your life, instead of ignoring those things, those patterns, you start to listen to them. For Shane and Ilya, the clues are obvious. The connection they can't let go of, the parts of themselves that keep breaking through the roles they feel like they have to perform. The O stands for origin story and heroic journey. Here we explore the story you've been living in. Who taught you who you had to be? We all carry narratives in our life that helped us survive and succeed, but sometimes those stories become too small for who you want to become. In this origin story, for Shane and Ilya, their identities, a disciplined hero, an untouchable rival, may no longer be enough to hold their full humanity. Okay, the M, what makes you come alive? This is about energy and aliveness. What brings you to life? I love this quote. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go do that, because what the world needs are people who have come alive. And so the starting point for me often is trying to help people identify what makes them come alive. For Shane and Ilya, ironically, what makes them come alive is also the very thing that they're afraid to claim, each other. And so you might find that for yourself, that there's something in your life where you're excited about, that you're curious about, that you feel like this is what makes you come alive, but there are also some obstacles that keep you from pursuing those things that make you come alive. And so that's part of this coordinating point as well. All right, and so the P in the compass framework stands for powers and personal strengths. So this is really about identifying what you're good at, what your natural strengths are. And oftentimes we might know our strengths, but we're not living in alignment with those strengths. And if the more we can live in alignment with those strengths, the more successful and happy we will be, according to research. So identifying your strengths, but then also leaning into them often, frequently, helps you be more successful. So in working with Ilya and Shane, I want to help them identify their top strengths, not just as athletes, but as well-rounded men. What does their life look like outside of hockey? And help them understand who they are as whole people. All right, the A stands for allies, tribe, and accountability. This is all about building a community where you don't have to do life alone. This could be for gay or closeted men, just finding people you can begin to share that story with. For people who are further along in their journey, I know it can be very isolating, even as an out gay man, to be connected to other gay men. And so that's a challenge that some of us have still. So finding your tribe, finding your people, and learning ways to build that community more effectively. For Shane and Ilya, at least in Heated Rivalry, they don't have any friends that know who they are as gay men, as bi men. And so just at the very end of the series, you see them beginning to confide in their parents, Shane's parents. And so how can we help them, Shane and Ilya, expand that? And then also, how can we do that for ourselves? The first S in the compass framework stands for sacred anchors and core values. This is about identifying what's most important to you in life. And like strengths, a lot of times we can be aware of what's most important to us, but we're not living in alignment with that. So this coordinating point is all about identifying and affirming your what's most important to you, your core values, but then also finding ways to lean into those core values, to live according to them. Values in many ways act as anchors. They help us make decisions when fear, pressure, and confusion kind of set in. For Shane and Ilya, we see this alignment happen throughout the series. And so the struggle to identify who they are really fully as gay and bi men, but then their affection for each other. And then finally the cottage where they can live in full kind of alignment with what their desires are and what satisfaction and peace and joy that brings to them. Living with a sense of integrity around who they are and what they love. So my conversations with them around this core value would help them identify, again, what those values are that they want to bring into the future with them, and how can they use those values to live an even more integrated life. The last S stands for symphony of self-care and service. And in this coordinating point, we ask, how can you sustain a life that you want? I mentioned a quote earlier, what makes you come alive? Kind of pay attention to that first. It's sort of like on a plane when they tell you if the oxygen masks, put one on yourself first and then help other people. That's kind of this idea of this dance between self-care and service. You want to pay attention to what makes you come alive, but also how can you be of service to other people? We don't want to forget that. And we see a little bit of this in Ilya and Shane's story in the last episode where they begin to talk about how can we set up a foundation to help other people who deal with mental health issues. They're beginning to look at beyond themselves. Their story is also very much wrapped up in that. They're trying to find a way to be together, but then also to serve the greater community. That's the idea of this coordinating point, is how do you find that balance of following your passions, your interests, your curiosities, but then also giving back in many ways, because there's a lot of research around volunteering and giving back and service, how that is directly correlated with well-being and purpose and meaning in life. So that's the essence of this final S in the compass framework. So the series will kind of connect the compass framework to what Shane and Ilya are going through, or what I imagine they would go through as they have these conversations with me. But I'm also going to ground this compass framework in real conversations with real men that I've talked to. So I'm going to be sharing my conversations with men like Seamus, who is a young gay man.
Just like the environment that you're in, like for me, like being in an environment with my friends and like being around gay people as like back in Cincinnati has allowed me to be more myself, and kind of being out on my own is a little bit more challenging to like be myself and be confident. So that's what I'm learning. And yeah, just like moving forward, I think want to go on some more dates and I don't know, just maybe seek out some more LGBTQ plus events and things like that on my own.
Who came out a couple of years ago. He was a college athlete and is still kind of figuring out his identity as a gay man. So we'll kind of walk through the process of what that's been like for him and what he's going to do to help further that process for himself. I also have a conversation with Shane, who was a professional athlete, a baseball player.
My purpose at that time had more or less, it became to live my values in a way that meant I could overcome all the adversity that I was facing. It stopped being about baseball because baseball was such a minority of the actual time that I spent. I don't know. I think I have at least a vague sense that like there will be some kind of falling in love moment or some kind of like, it's like the Supreme Court line from Defining Pornography. It's like, we can't define it, but we'll know it when we see it. I feel like that there would be a moment like that where I'm like, I can't really tell you what I'm looking for exactly, but I have a feeling that when it hits, it's just going to be like a tuning fork goes off in my heart. And it's like, that's it.
And just he's turning 30 and trying to figure out the next decade of his life, where he wants to go and what he wants to be as a man and professionally. And so I'll share those conversations with you about Shane. And then there's Johnny, who a guy I met in New Zealand at an event he had called Nature Symphony, and a just fascinating person.
So that storyline, I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time we spoke, but the old storyline I gave myself was I lack the courage to be honest with myself and therefore others. And I think there was something in that for me is that aspect of courage that I really wanted to sort of explore, is like a touchstone that I can live into in that sense. And I guess that strategy that I've developed was really rooted in a fear that I harbored as a child of something bad happening.
That I invited into these conversations to help him figure out what's next for him. He's mid-30s and really has a desire to have an impact on younger men. And so we have these series of conversations around Compass, which helps him navigate who he is, but also how he can give back to the community of men that he's serving in New Zealand. So those are a few examples of the men I've worked with. I'm going to bring those stories to you in the next several weeks to give you a kind of a glimpse into kind of behind the closed doors on Zoom of these conversations, what it was like to walk through these coordinating points together. So this is the Compass Framework, 7 coordinating points, 7 different conversations, clues, your origin story, what makes you come alive, powers and personal strengths, allies, their anchors and values, and this symphony of self-care and service. In the weeks to come, we're going to walk through each coordinating point, so take a week or two to talk about what that's like, to share examples of that with people I've worked with, kind of connected to Ilya and Shane and their story, and have some fun with it and try to walk through this with you. Make this a real thing for you as well. Like I said, it's kind of in between therapy and coaching. It's a conversation. And so I hope you can have these conversations with me, but in a real way for yourself. And so again, I've offered this guide on my website, and you can check it out. There's a sale going on right now, $9.99, but I'm offering it for $7.99 or $7.49. So check that out, Compass Quest Field Guide. A lot of content, a lot of research, a lot of my own personal story, but then places for you to reflect on and kind of do the work for yourself, the real work that I do with my clients. So I hope you can check that out and walk through this series with me with this field guide in hand as well. All right, I'll see you next week for a new episode in the series of what if Ilya and Shane were my clients? What would I do with them? And what can you do for yourself as you walk through this Compass Quest field guide with me? Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.